5 legacy foundations have withdrawn from the preparatory team of the National Dialogue just days before the National Convention next Friday, with them citing a deep failure to have citizen leadership and a shift towards government control. Is anyone surprised by this latest move? And President Cyril Ramaphosa and his US counterpart Donald Trump had a chit-chat this week on trade relations between the two countries, and maybe that phone call could be key to convincing the White House to play nice with us when it comes to South Africa's tariffs conundrum. The Departments of International Relations and Trade, Industry and Competition held a joint briefing on our country's efforts to explore new export markets as a way to mitigate the expected impact the 30% US tariffs will have on local jobs and businesses. The tripartite alliance, as we know it, seems to be on life support as the ANC mulled over the implications of the SACP going it alone for next year's local government elections. And in Parliament, the ad hoc committee that will be looking into allegations by KZN top cop Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has now elected a chairperson to lead the process of probing the claims that he made. And speaking of Mkhwanazi, he's also met with a delegation from the National Council of Provinces behind closed doors in KZN, but apparently it had nothing to do with some of the explosive allegations he made in July. I'm Ziyanda Ngcobo, and this is Your Week in Politics.
Unfortunately, through criminal activity.
President Cyril Ramaphosa and his US counterpart Donald Trump held a telephonic discussion on Wednesday morning, a day before the 30% tariffs imposed by the administration came into effect the following day.
I had a phone call with President Trump and we discussed the issue of the tariffs. We are going to be focusing on the talks that are going on through our officials and our ministers. We have to reach a deal one way or another. So we are proceeding with those discussions. So that was what the call was all about the tariffs.
According to the presidency, the two leaders have committed to continuous engagements on the various trade negotiations currently taking place between their respective countries. The government has also announced that it will look at boosting the National Exporter Development Program, which focuses on expanding opportunities for small, medium and micro enterprises. The aim is to grow the pool of export-ready markets while still negotiating with the US to reach a deal that will minimize the effects of the punitive tariffs. Ministers Park Stawu and Ronald Lamola gave an update on these ongoing efforts on Monday. Business Reports and Ntokozo Khumalo has more.
Exporters from the Western Cape were the first to ring the DTIC's Export Support Desk, launched last week, to deal with a steeper 30% US tariff that's due to kick in this Friday.
I think also important point to raise is to say, while the desk is giving information, the primary focus of the desk is really to assist companies to enter new markets.
But while diversifying markets may sound like a quick fix, Trade and Industry Minister Park Stawu says this isn't about opening floodgates, but rather threading carefully in a rapidly shifting global trade landscape.
It does take long to secure markets, but these are markets we've been working on. And I elaborated on China as but just one example, as indicated by Minister Lamola. We're in South Africa EU summit in March this year. We agreed to finalize the Clean Trade and Investment Partnership with them. They made an initial commitment of 90 billion rand to be able to invest as an initial commitment. We've agreed that working towards the G20 Heads of State Summit between now and then, or between the point at which we started the discussions, would finalize the details of what constitutes the Clean Trade and Investment Partnership. So it does take long, and you still have to deal with other realities. I mean, you would know we announced last year that we're in dispute with the EU around citrus and the citrus black spot. So to open up the citrus market in the EU does deal with sanitary and phytosanitary issues that you need to engage with.
To fast-track efforts, Minister Ronald Lamola says DIRCO and the DTIC will jointly roll out support using the Local Support Fund and the Transformation Fund, helping businesses already exporting and those still gearing up to streamline and stay competitive during uncertainty.
The ANC seems to be on shaky ground with several of its relationships. If it's not beefing with the DA within the Government of National Unity, it's the South African Communist Party wanting to break up with Luthuli House and go it alone in opposition to its ally for the next local government elections. ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula held a briefing after the party's 4-day national executive meeting last weekend. He says the SACP members in government will at some stage need to choose where it stands, which puts the National Democratic Revolution in a unique position. Here's Olega Kodashe with that story.
ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula has lashed out at the DA, accusing it of being anti-transformation amid talks of a reset in the Government of National Unity. The party's National Executive Committee met over the weekend and resolved to have discussions with other political parties. The move follows multiple public tussles between the two biggest political parties in the coalition government. Mbalula did not mince his words when it came to the DA.
The DA's posture reflects a deeply entrenched neo-imperialist mindset that seeks to subordinate South Africa's sovereign right to chart its own economic destiny to the interests of foreign powers and domestic elites. The ANC will not retreat from defending the economic freedom of our people.
This is not the only partnership that's on the rocks. The ANC's relationship with the South African Communist Party is another. The SACP has resolved to contest the 2026 local government elections independently.
The resolution of the SACP is forcing members of the ANC who are members of the SACP to choose between the ANC and the SACP. So the notion of dual membership doesn't fall away, but the implication of that decision essentially says choose between the ANC and the SACP.
Mbalula also took a tough stance on the 30% tariffs slapped by the United States and threats from President Donald Trump's administration.
The whole of our nation must be punished. He's not coming to the G20 and then that is it. Despite the fact that facts say something different. In the delegation, you've got prominent business people from South Africa who say that this thing you are talking about is not the way it's unfolding in the country and all of that. But they are not retreating. They are intensifying. So it's to basically coerce us to do things that are anti-transformation. It's not possible. If it means we're going to suffer through sanctions as leaders of the ANC, let it be.
One political analyst believes there's also likely to be tension within the SACP, as those who occupy government positions may now have to make a decision on whether to relinquish their jobs for the sake of towing the party line and a Congress decision.
It came as no surprise to me when Fikile Mbalula said that one of the things that they are considering currently, well, when he said that the SACP leaders that are currently in the ANC will have to choose whether or not they want to be within the ANC, or maybe they actually want to follow suit and with the SACP and contest independently. And I think that this could potentially cause conflict between some ANC leaders as well as those who are currently in the conflict between SACP leaders, because there are those that are currently in government, holding government positions such as Yobuti Manamela and Blade Nzimande. So where is this going to put them should the SACP ultimately decide to contest independently as a political party?
The Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee looking into allegations made by KZN Police Commissioner Ziyanda Ngcobo has appointed a chairperson to lead the multi-party delegation. The ANC's Soviet Lekganyane was elected unopposed to spearhead the body, a move welcomed by his political home but met with skepticism by opposition parties. Nasipi Same has those details.
ANC MP Molabi Soviet Lekganyane was elected unopposed to chair the ad hoc committee probing allegations of corruption within the South African Police Service. His appointment comes just 2 weeks after the committee was formed in response to bombshell claims by KwaZulu-Natal's Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Ziyanda Ngcobo.
The political party ideological divides will never unite us. What must unite us is the task that is at hand before us, to unearth the truth about the allegations that have been made and to provide a way forward through proposals to Parliament on how those matters can be processed going forward.
Action SA holds the view that the committee should not be chaired by any member of Parliament from a party whose members are directly implicated in the allegations.
We have an ANC Member of Parliament being elected as the chairperson to preside over what we are meant to probe. I cannot wonder if that already compromises this entire process. I cannot help but wonder how South Africans are feeling about this, in light of the fact that this committee is supposed to sort of bring confidence.
The EFF and Mkhonto Wesizwe Party echoed similar concerns, calling for independent leadership and a broader consultation on the committee's terms of reference.
I would suggest that we allow political parties maybe to send some written submissions so we can find expression in the first draft. So I think it will save us a lot of time when we're reviewing them on Friday.
I want us to deal with the aspect of the criminals who are already in prison, who might share a lot of information with us. Very dangerous criminals. How do we get them here? Can we summon them here? And all of that. Because you're talking drugs, if you're talking drugs and drugs cartel, you must know you're talking about some of the people who are already in prison.
Among the issues on the committee's plate is the alleged unlawful disbanding of the Political Killings Task Team. Reports of the removal of 121 criminal dockets by Deputy National Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya, and Mkhwanazi's assertions that he has submitted proof of political interference. Parliament's Legal Services says the KZN police boss's claims should not be accepted wholesale.
What General Mkhwanazi said, Chairperson, on the 6th of July 2025 is not evidence, Chairperson, in a technical sense. And of course, one would need a legal person to go around speaking to people who will be able to corroborate what Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi said. And of course, as you can imagine, Chairperson, the committee, cannot do that. And of course, you need, sworn statements from witnesses.
The suggestion that Mkhwanazi's allegations cannot be treated as evidence was met with sharp pushback.
Our own members have already said that what Mkhwanazi said is not evidence, it's disturbing. Then why are we here? Are we here for gossiping? No, we are not here for that. Mkhwanazi presented, he attached evidence in that press statement, and we are going to deal with that here.
Staying with Mkhwanazi, the National Council of Provinces led a delegation to KwaZulu-Natal where they met with the provincial commissioner but claimed their visit had nothing to do with that now infamous July 6th briefing.
The allegations or the explosives, as you've described it, was not part of this meeting's agenda. As you can see, I'm with members of Parliament from the NCOP representing the province of KZN. And this week we are doing our constituency work, and this province is our constituency. And part of the oversights that we've identified was to come and see how best we can be able to be of help to the South African Police Service in as far as bringing issues of police in the national parliament. And that is precisely why we are doing this oversight. On Wednesday, we're meeting with the Premier of KZN. So it is part of an ongoing stakeholder engagement and part of our constituency work representing the province. But having said that, today's engagement was purely about the crime in the province, the challenges that exist in the South African police service, and that was on the agenda. And we wanted to understand from the police and from the provincial commissioner on how best we can be able to help in bringing some of those challenges into the national sphere. And some of those issues include the shortage of vehicles in the province. It includes shortage of personnel. There's not enough police in the province. There's about 12 million population in the province, and there's only 23,000 police officers. And that is shocking, because it clearly tells you that we are unable to deal with crime the way that we should.
President Cyril Ramaphosa was in the Pretoria High Court this week, seeking to stay the prosecution against him and the government for constitutional damages. The lawsuit was initiated by the families of the victims of murder, kidnapping and disappearances during the apartheid era, who are seeking answers about why over 300 cases referred by the TRC for prosecution were not investigated by the National Prosecuting Authority. The cost of the constitutional damages is billed at more than 160 million rand, which the relatives say would be placed in a trust to be used for further litigation, educational material, memorials, among other things. Ramaphosa, who's since instituted a commission of inquiry looking into whether political interference was to blame for the delay in prosecuting TRC cases, argued through his lawyers that it makes sense to stay the main lawsuit pending the outcomes of the investigations.
Of course, the delay is regrettable, but we take the view that you can't have a situation where the Commission of Inquiry will be ventilating the same allegations that have been made in respect of this main application, in respect of which orders are sought based on the same allegations. So we take the view that the interests of justice demand respectfully that the Commission of Inquiry sits, ventilate the issue, adjudicate over the issues, make pronouncements or findings or conclusions or recommendations to the President, in respect of which then, if they are not satisfied, they are free to approach any court.
When we come back, I'll tell you about a fresh diplomatic row brewing between South Africa and Russia after our country refused a Navy training vessel permission to dock in Cape Town to refuel. And former President Jacob Zuma made an ultimatum to his successor, Cyril Ramaphosa, demanding that the president explain why he decided to place Minister Senzo Mchunu on a leave of absence instead of just firing him. Zuma held a briefing about this and other issues on Friday, while Ramaphosa has also responded. More on that after this. Welcome back. Thanks for staying tuned to Your Week in Politics here on Newzroom Afrika, channel 405. On Friday, an explosive joint statement from the Tambo, Mbeki, de Klerk, Biko, Tutu and Lutuli foundations announced they'll no longer take part in next week's national convention. In explaining their withdrawal from the gathering, the foundations say the process has shifted towards government control, losing its citizen-led spirit. They accuse organizers, the government, of pressing ahead despite warnings from subcommittee chairs that the timing wasn't right. They also point to constrained logistics, deep divisions over governance and risk, and a fixation on holding the event on the 15th of August, turning it into what they call a performative milestone rather than a meaningful launch.
With regard to the national dialogue, I had a meeting, a fairly long meeting, with the PTT, the Planning Task Team, which is composed of people from the foundations as well as officials from the presidency. We had a lengthy discussion and we dealt with the extent of preparedness for the first convention, which is going to be on the 15th. And there was a sense in some of the quarters that we may not be as prepared as we should be. And it had to do with the level of preparedness. And then I raised a concern that the invitations have already gone out to 750 organizations. And many of those organizations have already responded that they are coming, they are willing and committed. Prior to that meeting, there had been a meeting of civil society where there were 100 representatives and who felt that they want to go ahead with the dialogue. So what was pleasing for me was that the foundations who felt that they are not so happy about the level of preparedness felt and said that they will remain part of this dialogue. So they will participate, they will remain part of it, and then they will leave the planning for the first convention to the civil society organizations and officials from the presidency. From what I gleaned, there was nothing political about it.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has now responded to the MK party's ultimatum over his decision to place Newzroom Afrika on special leave. The official opposition's 10 a.m. deadline on Friday for him to fire Mchunu and reverse the appointment of acting police minister Firoz Kachalia has come and gone. MK party leader Jacob Zuma had issued the warning in a legal letter to Ramaphosa earlier this week. Our First Citizen says his predecessor should use proper channels such as written questions in Parliament and, if still unsatisfied, pursue the legal route again. He adds that all the issues Zuma raised were already dealt with by the Constitutional Court last week when the MK party tried to urgently block Kachalia's swearing in.
Mr. Ramaphosa responded on time. And I think that's important. It demonstrates that he takes President Zuma seriously and Mkhonto Sizwe very seriously. He responded on time. But sadly, his response, he is running away again from answering the questions. Basic questions that we've raised with him. The questions we raised was, he said he's appointing Professor Kachalia as per Section 91(3)(c) in an acting capacity. There is no such thing in the Constitution that allows a president to appoint someone in acting. There was no such thing. It was a simple question that was asked. We then asked him, at the point at which he then appointed Professor Kachalia, he refers to him as a minister designate. Which one is it? Acting minister, minister designate, or minister? It's confusing. So those are some of the questions that we asked him. But again, we can't expect more from a person who himself is a constitutional delinquent.
At the same time, the membership of the MK party's former Secretary General, Floyd Shivambu, has now officially been terminated.
The leadership of Mkhonto Sizwe has noted several statements and utterances by the former Secretary General, who was removed from the position recently. The leadership of Mkhonto Sizwe had considered these utterances and actions and arrived at a conclusion that the former Secretary General had not only publicly defined himself or themselves outside the ranks and ideological line of the MK party, but also seriously violated the trust placed on them as a member of the party. In this regard, the decision has been taken to summarily terminate the membership of the former Secretary General, and a formal letter of expulsion was transmitted to him on the 15th of July 2025.
A diplomatic row may be brewing between South Africa and Russia after our country denied a Russian Navy training vessel permission to dock in Cape Town for refueling. This comes shortly after Home Affairs Minister Leon Schreiber approved a similar request from the United States. The ship last visited Cape Town in August 2023 during a training voyage with over 300 cadets aiming to strengthen naval ties. At the time, the DA criticized the visit, saying it undermined South Africa's non-aligned stance on the Russia-Ukraine war. But President Cyril Ramaphosa poured cold water on the matter when speaking in Vereeniging on Friday.
Well, when it comes to the Russian ship, no. It had to do with like real technical stuff that's being handled with our defense people.
That's your week in politics for now, but in the days ahead we'll bring you more on the Legacy Foundation's withdrawal from the National Dialogue Preparatory Task Team. A media briefing is expected on Monday, and their decision could throw next weekend's National Convention into doubt. So stay tuned to Newzroom Afrika channel 405 for the latest news, views and breaking updates. But for now, it's goodbye and thank you for watching.